Yeah, there's always a moving target as to what better could be. No matter how good you are, there's always that next step that you can take to become better.
At Elements of Culture, we sit down with experts in leadership and team building to explore the DNA that drives a thriving organization. Welcome, everyone, to Elements of Culture. My name is Taryn, and I'm joined with my co host, Julie. And today we are talking with Todd Priest. He has an extensive background of sales leadership at the executive level with some very well known companies. I'm excited to chat with Todd today, and he is going to just really be sharing with us and our audience about what good leadership looks like. Maybe share some stories along the journey and what's really brought you to where you are. So, welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you, Taryn. Thank you, Julie. It's nice to be here. Yeah, lots of stories, fun stories, actually.
Well, I'm excited to dig into some of those. Before we dig in a bit further, Todd, tell us about your background. Tell us about kind of your career journey. What's brought you to where you're at today? I know really sales leadership and the team dynamics is certainly a focus. Help paint a little bit of a picture for us.
Yeah, certainly. Let's see, long journey, but still traveling fast paced. I studied international business by design. I knew that the world was becoming smaller. I focused on tech because I knew that that was also a growth industry and would enable human engagement. And I like that quite a bit. So out of university, I started in sales, as most of us do, that gravitate into that sales leadership moment. I quickly learned that I enjoyed leading. I knew that before anyway, because I was an athlete as a younger person, and I generally fell into coaching type of activity and captain type of activity. So it came naturally. But with that, I still needed to learn. I'm a constant learner. Even today, this morning already listened to a couple podcasts. So I'm constantly trying to find something net new. But technology, yeah, I started with a scale up tech firm, manufacturer out of Asia, and built my individual contributor type of mindset and awareness and capabilities. Did very well, got promoted and moved into sales management. And then shortly thereafter, sales leadership. I've replicated that a number of times, all in the spirit of technology and sales leadership, selling tech, even within the large scale businesses, but not ever working for a large scale, uh, for that Fortune 100 type company. Sold into them, but not work for them. I had an opportunity to join Hewlett Packard Enterprise, which was my first venture down that path, which was beautiful. Fantastic company, great people, very, very smart. Learned a lot, learned what I was very good at, learned what I was maybe lacking in or less good at, and gave focus to those gaps, working with brilliant people that were very enabling to my career. I worked with McKinsey as well in implementing a go-to-market plan, which was brilliant, fantastic educational process. I learned a lot, did a couple of those, moved over to Lumen, did that with Lumen as well, Appian as well. And that brings us up through today. Technology is a great enabler of so many things in this world. But at the end of the day, just like we're doing today, enabled by tech, we're talking to people, and people make the world go around. So
Yes.
I'm a huge believer in enablement with technology, but people work with people.
Yeah, that's so good. I think you know, the show is called Elements of Culture. Like, we have to talk about the people, we have to talk about the cultural dynamics. And yeah, tech has certainly been just a wonderful tool for us as businesses to scale and connect our people to resources. And I think that, as we continue to progress, as with sales on the enablement side, but as well as resources for the client side, those resources continue to evolve. You mentioned, and I just have to touch on this because we're talking about culture. You mentioned you got involved with a company that was out of Asia. So, and I think specifically with tech, you see a lot of crossover with culture and with companies that are based internationally. What do you feel like you learned from some of those experiences and have been able to implement in the dynamics that you're working in the environment you're in today?
Yeah, great question. I think that if I had to nutshell it, it would be being dynamic. Culture is different for everybody. Um, and when you talk about my experience working for, specifically, it was a Taiwanese based company, yet their life culture is different than much of the US, but it's warm and it's focused and it's dynamic. And so I learned very, very early in my career that being dynamic, understanding the variance with people and how they work makes a massive difference. And it can be a good or a bad difference. If you don't embrace that, it can be very challenging. If you do embrace that, you have a learning curve that you've got to run through and understand what is happening in that engagement model and what your role is within that engagement model.
Yeah, that's so good. Being dynamic. I think so often we operate in our roles or in our spaces sort of like blinded to the things around us, which includes culture and people as well. And so you do have to be dynamic.
Yes.
Yeah. Todd, so with your experience with such great companies, talk to me a little bit about some experiences that you've had in coming into some roles and assessing the culture of the teams that you're over and how you've kind of overcome some hurdles that you've, like in your experience, like, hey, this is not healthy on this team. How do we overcome this? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's always a moving target as to what better could be. No matter how good you are, there's always that next step that you can take to become better. And there are always challenges. It's how you meet the challenge is what I've learned is the difference maker. In my assessment, I look to build trust. It's a critical element of my success model. So when I step into a new role with a new team, I try and understand what that dynamic already is as I get there, what they've already developed, who they are as human beings, how they like to work, where are they in their trajectory, what do they want to do, all the normal things that I consider blocking and tackling fundamentals. Um, Not everybody looks at those things, which is fine. Um, you got to do what works for you. But I try and look at all those different dynamics, and then I try and understand where my role fits within that, as well as what the charter is for that particular company or that particular BU, and then put these building blocks together to make it work well, make it work better, and produce a bigger, better result, and have more fun doing so. I'd say the biggest challenge. There are many challenges, but trust building. People need to understand that there's a trust dynamic that comes with me. I do my best to build that trust with each individual as well as the teams, and above beyond the direct reports, it needs to be uh, a 360-degree trust channel. So it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of commitment, but if you're committed to it, you can achieve it.
That's so good. I love that we're talking about trust because I think in order to be a healthy leader and to have a healthy team, you certainly have to have that trust factor. Um, I want to ask you, and I might put you on the spot a little bit, Todd, but talking about trust, talking about, staying motivated as a leader, how would you say if you have young leaders that are listening to this conversation that they're wanting to be in that higher role and maybe kind of have the same drive that you have, they're motivated, but they're not really sure practically how do you show up and build that trust for a new team? So if you have someone who's maybe newer in the role, they're coming in, they're assessing things, what would you say are some practical ways for maybe new leadership to build that trust factor? Because you have to think too, the workforce is changing. There are lots of different generations that are moving into different roles within the corporate spaces. And so you have millennials, you have Gen Z that's coming in and moving more into those C suite level positions. What would you say to those new leaders that are maybe feeling a bit more challenged to build that trust?
Yeah, great question. There are multiple generations in leadership roles, in related roles, and connecting together. And it can be very, very dynamic, but it can be so much fun if you have that open mind and you have that ability to connect with human beings. Oftentimes, I give a couple different pieces of guiding principle to newer leaders. Listen a lot, ask the questions, and then step back from that and allow the individual and the teams to respond and really pay attention. Put the microphone down, put the phone down, put the pen down, and just listen and take it all in and try and understand what that individual, in this case, if it was a new leader, what that person is trying to accomplish, what their goals are, what their perceived struggles or challenges may be, where they think they're strong, where you can, through the years of experience, you can start to feel some of the gaps or challenges. But you have to listen and you have to watch and pay close attention to the detail. And then when you think you've got it, ask some more questions. It shows a lot of respect. It's a two-way street. There needs to be communication. There needs to be collaboration. I speak to the collaboration piece is a really critical element for me personally. I find that collaboration creates buy-in. Every company has, whether it's in an evolutionary state or it's in a temporary cemented state, they have their goals, they have their trajectory, and they have their roadmap to go get it. But things do change along the way. They always do. But if you have that plan, you need to be able to work to that plan and help folks understand what that strategy and plan is, what their role is within that ecosystem. But then to allow them to be a part of it in a meaningful way, creating buy-in, it's much more powerful if they've contributed to it. If they have a voice within that ecosystem that contributes to that strategy and to that plan. It also creates a higher level of accountability to the outcome. And it makes it much easier for a more holistic approach from the different branches of that team to execute at a higher clip because they're bought in. So listen a lot, create respect, create trust, create buy-in, and be accountable to going and executing.
I really like that. I love collaboration because I think in a day and age where technology is so moving so quickly, I think it's easy to be a one-man show. And I think we're noticing that. But the human element aspect of it, I think, is now we're seeing is we can't build healthy teams that way. There's no I in team, right? So I think that's really interesting because I think collaboration is making a comeback in corporate America right now. I think before it was like, what can I do on my own? What kind of results? What kind of sales? What kind of numbers can I put up? And so I see the collaboration, especially with leaders like you and other leaders that we've spoken to. We see collaborations making a comeback. How what kind of advice would you provide a person who is trying to go to market and create collaboration amongst other departments in the company? Because I think we can establish some level of trust with our own teams, but how do we collaborate with other departments? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think more and more people are asking themselves and others this type of question. How can I do more? By the way, you can only scale so far as an individual, right? So if we are able to connect with more people and create a bigger collaborative circle, we can accomplish a lot more, a lot quicker. But again, it always seems so fundamental. I was recently speaking with a CEO of a really fantastic company, and we got into talking a little bit about the collaboration and the dynamic of lone wolf versus team. And I made the comment that this is very fundamental. And he says, yeah, you say that, but it's not fundamental for everybody. This could be complex for somebody that's not quite been around that tree yet. But I think it's very basic. I try and keep it simple and straightforward. I use a tiered model. So whether it's internal or external facing, I believe that the collaboration, it needs to be actually multi-tiered because there are people that have roles and responsibilities and subject matter expertise that each individual can't possess everything. So you need to be able to take a little bit from everybody and put it to work in a much more powerful fashion. So whether you have a buddy system, which I've used quite a bit, there's a fantastic value in creating a buddy system with a peer-to-peer, but somebody that's got a more, I'll say, more advanced or matured career path. They're great mentors to those folks that are on that fast track. The other element is aligning the different roles that connect to a sales motion: marketing, customer success, even product, certainly engineers, as well as a critical element, leadership. Leadership needs to be part of that go-to-market model, and they need to have touch points and access and awareness of what's going on in the marketplace. And the salespeople need to be at ease with trust and comfort to say, I need from each of you this, that, and the other, given the dynamic of what they're selling and who they're selling to. And those folks really should be, and in my groups, they are aligned. And we go to market as a team. We win as a team, we lose as a team, we learn as a team, and we continue forward as a team. It's basic stuff.
That's so good. So what I'm hearing is there has to be clear communication, right, between the departments, and everyone's kind of following the same game plan. If you have, I know with Todd, before we jumped on the recording today, you mentioned you'd listened to some of the podcast, and if you've listened to us and heard us, we get on a soapbox about communication sometimes, and sometimes the lack of that we see within organizations. But in order to have, really clear plans and to put the team, specifically sales, we're talking about sales, a bit today, there has to be some clarity. Everyone's kind of running towards the same goal. I want to switch gears a little bit because we're talking about tech. You've got an extensive background in tech. And you mentioned you played sports. So you are obviously in the place that you're in your career path, you're a motivated individual, which requires discipline. So when it comes to the different generations moving into the workplace, and even myself, we all have a device of some kind and we're talking across technology. There are lots of distractions, right? And so when it comes to keeping a team motivated, you might have personal distractions, you might have tech distractions, you might have health things going on in your life. It could be a wide variety of things. But what would you say to the day and age that we are in? There's lots of distractions. What's your approach in keeping your people motivated and really going after those revenue goals as a team? You said we win as a team, we lose as a team. How do you keep the team going in a world where there's so much going on?
Yeah, great question. And it's never easy, but it can be fun, which is the underlying effect for me. I try and make it fun. As you accurately noted, yes, I have a pretty deep discipline to my life in general, personally and professionally. I'm still athletic. I still get out there and mix it up a little bit, but I apply that same competitive approach in my professional life for me first, and then I try and translate that out where applicable. Motivation, it's really not easy. It can be tough. I often say I can teach discipline, I can teach a task, but I can't teach passion.
Yeah.
So I look for people that are passionate about what they want to do and how they want to do it, and getting the right people, talking about technology, talking about people that want to be excellent. Those are the people that I look for and get them on the bus. The right people may not be the cookie cutter people, but the people that come from a specific vertical or come from a specific background, but they very well may be the right person for this role at this time. So I look for the best people for the role, that are passionate, that have a capacity to learn and a drive to go make something happen. And that motivation is first and foremost self-evident within them. And then it's up to me to get what that next level looks like and help that buy into the vision that we're putting forward and what we're trying to accomplish as a team, as a company, etc. And I do all kinds of little things that I think have created certain moments of motivation. I like one-on-ones. I like mixing it up and getting out there in the field with them, with clients, with partners, with channel engagements. I like to stay in the mix so that they can trust that I'm there with them and that I have their back when they come to the party with a challenge and say, this isn't working. Here's what's happening. Oh, by the way, this person. In that last meeting, after that, they brought a new challenge to us. What do you think? Or here's my idea. I also do team stand-ups, and the team stand-ups are really empowering because it's not about what my agenda is. I try and flip that on its head a little bit and create the team dynamic to bring information to the table for what their interests are, what their needs are. And I bring different subject matter experts from those that I discussed with you earlier, internally and externally, into team meetings to create that information flow. And I will say that creates additional motivation to go do something more, to go make something bigger, better happen. And then honestly, celebrating the little things, celebrating those mini milestones along that path to that big success, that matters. Recognition in public space matters. All the little one-on-one coaching elements build up, and there's pros and cons to those conversations sometimes, but at the end of the day, all these little things matter, and they create motivation. They motivate me. I feel really, really excited to be able to help somebody do something bigger and better and succeed at what they want to go and achieve. So it's a circle of motivation. I think it's not just for me to go motivate other people, but first I have to have it myself. And oftentimes people are motivating me to do more to help them. So it's fantastic.
Todd, you talked about you're always looking for people that have a drive, a passion, and are motivated to learn. Talk to me a little bit about how you develop leaders. Are these some of the same traits you're looking for in the development of leadership amongst your team? And can everybody be coached into a good leader, or is that something innate in your experience?
I think it's both. Certainly people, if they have the interest, but maybe not the core skill set, that foundation, they can learn. We're dynamic people, so we have the ability to learn what we want to become good at. I will say that if you don't possess innately that core characteristic, it does take a little bit longer, but they can do it. If you do possess that core characteristic, it's for most, it's pretty easy to see. People gravitate into those natural leadership positions, whether they're an individual contributor that's in a team that people look to. I see this all the time. People look to that individual and say, hey, you did this before. How can I do that? What did you do differently that made that so successful? I want to replicate that. And they're already using their innate capability to lead. They may not be in the position at that very minute as a formal leader, but they're developing it and they're moving forward with it, and it just happens naturally. So I look for that, and then it needs to be an interest. And those that express interest, I love when people say, I want more. I would like to do this. I would like to achieve that. That's really quite motivating for me to have people come and say, I would like to try and achieve this, and I would like your help. That's fantastic. If you don't, my mother shared with me when I was very young, if you don't ask, you don't get. Sometimes you do. But by and large, if you want it, go start opening those doors, ask the questions. And for people like me, we are waiting to help. We are looking to help. We are helping those that have that ability, but we're also helping those that ask for the help as well. So there's only so many hours in a day. So step forward, lean in.
That's so good. That's so good. I think, for us, for both of us, we've seen the corporate culture, it's continued to evolve. It really has. I think there have been some great things that corporate America has done well. And I think that there's some things that, we can continue to revisit.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, Todd, that you've got lots of stories from your background and just like the different places and environments that you've been. Let's get into the nitty gritty a little bit, what you are willing to share, of course. What do you think are some things that maybe corporate America has just not done very well and how that's changed? Like highlight some of those maybe not so great approaches and what we're doing differently now that you see at this point in your career.
Yeah, that's a dangerous question.
I know. I told you
That's a
I'm not afraid of the dangerous questions.
no, I think it's an important question to ask. There's oftentimes the ability to learn more from what doesn't work well if you care to look at it in that light. And I do a daily reflection. So it's I think it's a criticality to accelerating what's good or what could be good, what's next. I would say what doesn't work is having the wrong people on the bus and then micromanaging that to create an outcome that's not natural or that's not sustainable. I've had a good number of conversations historically around micromanagement, which I'm not a fan of. My comments on that are very clean and clear. If we need to micromanage something, it's not the right thing. So when it comes to people, I've known leaders that very, very directly state, go micromanage that person or that group to get this result and do it on this timeline and do it now. That I think is unhealthy by and large. That's a whole slew of challenge. But if you need to micromanage somebody, they're probably not the right person, and maybe you're not either. So it really creates a moment of reflection when you get to that. I've overcome that by going back to what we talked about a little bit ago, which is active collaboration and creating trust and buy-in. I try really hard to pick the right people, to get those individuals to come in the role that we really need, and pick the best person that has a really strong drive and passion to what they want to accomplish, and then educate and enable and set them up and surround them with good people with active communication to drive to that outcome. And I found that it works. If you find the right people and you enable them, you usually get really good results. And therefore you don't need to have that micromanagement element in your mix. Doesn't mean that it happens. It does. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, I agree. As I mentioned, things are continuing to evolve within our corporate spaces and the way that we interact, the way that we have conversations with people and really seeing the individual. You kind of talked that we didn't get real dangerously into some of those toxic things, but that's okay. I think that that's a big one. I really do. I think the micromanaging thing is a big one. And like you said, if you don't have the right people, then maybe you're the problem, maybe they're the problem. But I think ultimately you have to be able to self-reflect as a leader, and if you're not doing that, then how productive are you really being, for yourself and for your team and the space that you're in. As we wrap up, this conversation has been great. I want to ask you one last question to summarize things, your career path that you've had. If there was one decision that you've made, whether it's been around leadership or just coaching your people, maybe it's been a mentor in your own life and your own journey. If there is one thing that you feel like has made such an impact, Todd, what would that be? What would that takeaway be?
There's so many things. To narrow it down to one, that's a very big challenge. That said, find your passion, and then be consistent in building upon it and chase it down and continue to build. But find something that you very much enjoy, and good things will come. I think somebody shared that with me early on, and I've done that, and it's worked out well.
I think that's so good. I think sometimes we might go down a path and we just continue to go down this path, but we kind of disconnect from what our passion truly is. And as a leader, you become ineffective. And so, yeah, you really do have to make sure your passions are aligned with where you're building, where you're spending your time. Because if you're not doing that, everyone is reaping the fruit of that, whether it be bad fruit or good fruit, in your growth and your path along with your team. But this has been so good. And I think that
also,
yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry. No, I think being vulnerable to the fact that, as years go on, your passions can change. And I think people need to really examine themselves and be like, hey, this used to be fun. This used to drive me. This used to motivate me. But it seems like something shifted. And I think people don't ever get the time to sit and do that. And so I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, you're amazing at this, but do you still want to do this? And really helping people kind of. So I think the passion thing, I think you nailed it on the head. I think if more people could ask themselves that question and allow themselves not to be defined by the former passion in moving forward, I think it could help a lot of people be placed and be doing the things that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Things do change. Life changes, situations change, interests change. I'll share this really quick on that note. I like coaching, I like mentoring, I like leading, I like that sale, I like the strategy being pushed into a tactical implementation and closing it out. It's all very fun to me. It's a puzzle and it's solving that puzzle. So those are all good things. Technology, though, I've been in different areas of technology. Why? Because my interest changed as the industry started to evolve, and it's in a constant state of evolution. My interest, as many of us, started out in infrastructure. I've worked different parts of the industry in infrastructure. My interests are constantly evolving. I then went into service-based activity, software. I've done application development. I've touched a lot of different elements of tech because my interest has led me there and the opportunity has been presented to further my interest, all with an undercurrent, though, an underlying passion of sales leadership and helping others scale their business. So I've been privileged in being able to keep my primary passion intact while evolving and changing my technical awareness and application of my skill set to that new tech environment. So it's a constant reflection. I encourage everybody to try and do that on a daily basis, to really reflect on what are their motivators, what do they want to accomplish, and who do they want to work with, because there's a lot of choice in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. So lean in. What are the passions? Self-reflect. Those are all key things that are going to help, drive you as a leader into success. Well, Todd, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation on elements of culture. It's been a pleasure. And we look forward to staying in touch and having more conversations.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Todd.